Well, we're in week 2 of our look at children of Abraham. In the Bible, in Galatians 3:7, it says, "Understand then that all those who believe are children of Abraham." And last week we saw how Abraham lived by faith, how he walked out leaving his home country, to go to the place where God would guide him. That was in the first half of Genesis chapter 12. And then a few minutes ago, we heard the second half of Genesis chapter 12. And our great man of faith has fallen on hard times, and his faith is tested. There's a famine in the land, and Abraham and Sarah, here called by their original names, Abram and Sarai, they have to leave the promised land and move to another country. And it's a scary proposition because they don't know how they'll be treated there. And Abraham especially is afraid for his life because his wife Sarah is very beautiful. And he figures that the Egyptians might kill him to get to his wife. And so what does he do? This great hero of faith, he tells Sarah to lie and say that they're brother and sister. Now, how can a man of God do such a thing? Has he given up completely on God? No, I don't think so. But it's amazing how easy it is, even for people of faith, to tell a lie. A recent study from Duke University discovered that almost everyone lies a little bit. And they also found that we tend to lie up to the point where we feel like we're cheaters. As long as we can still tell ourselves that we are good people, then we have no trouble lying. And so we might be honest if somebody gave us $100 too much and tell them that they've overpaid. But if it's just $1, we might not say anything. Live with the lie. Or if others around us are cheating, we're more likely to cheat as well, because if everybody's doing it, I don't feel so bad about myself. Or if I can tell myself that my lie is helping someone else, well, then I'm more likely to lie as well. Sarah lies for Abraham's sake. And Abraham lies because it's only a half-truth, just a little lie. See, Sarah actually is his half-sister. Still, to say that they're only brother and sister and not married, it is a lie, and it gets them in trouble, and it gets Pharaoh's household in trouble, and it's sure not an example of living by faith. But God doesn't give up on Abraham. In fact, God tells him again that he will become a great nation and will bless the whole world. Genesis chapter 15 says this: "After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. 'Don't be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield, your very great reward.' But Abram said, 'O sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. You've given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir.' The word of the Lord came to him, 'This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir.' He took him outside and said, 'Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if you can indeed count them.' Then God said to him, 'So shall your offspring be.' And Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness." Once again, Abraham is back on the road of faith. God has promised that he will have a son of his very own. And so let's do a little Bible quizzing this morning and see if you can guess what this man of faith does next. The years go by, and Abraham and Sarah are getting up there in age without having a child. And God's promise depends on Abraham having a child. So what does our aging man of faith do next? Does Abraham hit the gym to stay in shape, even though he's getting a little older? Does he take vitamins? Or does he C, sleep with the maid? The answer is C. He sleeps with the maid. Chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my maid. Perhaps I can build a family through her." And Abram agreed to what Sarah said. Abraham and Sarah do what we so often do when God doesn't act on our time schedule. They take matters into their own hands. How often have you been tempted to do that? To force God's hand, to do what you know isn't right because you think that God's way just simply can't work. Abraham sleeps with the maid Hagar, and they have a son, Ishmael. And God's disappointed. But God still doesn't give up on Father Abraham. In fact, in the very next chapter, in chapter 17, God repeats his promise of a child. God said to Abram, "As for Sarah, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her." So next question. What does our man of faith do this time? Does he A, post the good news on Facebook, B, laugh at God, or C, add a new baby room to his tent? Well, the answer is B. Abraham laughs at God. Abram fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, "Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing." Abraham laughs in God's face. "God, you can't do that. It's impossible. Besides, I've already taken care of everything for you. I've already gotten a son of my own through the maid." Oh, where is the faith, Abraham? But God doesn't give up. A while later, the Lord comes to Abraham and Sarah through 3 angels, and this time they tell him that Sarah will get pregnant within a year. It's chapter 18. The Lord said, "I will surely return to you this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent. So, what does our great mother in the faith do when she hears this news? Does she A, thank God, B, laugh at God and lie, or C, buy baby clothes? Well, just like with Abraham, she doubts. The answer is B. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I'm worn out and my husband is old, will I now have this pleasure of children?" And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I'm old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I didn't laugh." But the Lord said, "Yes, you did laugh." Why is it that we who live by faith find it so hard to believe that God will actually keep God's promises? How many times when we are put to the test do we live as though we have no trust in God at all? And then how many times do we lie about it and pretend like, "Oh yeah, I never doubted you, God. Never once." If you're going to doubt, well, at least have the guts to admit to God that you're having doubts. God can work with that. But to pretend that your faith could never be shaky, well, that's just ridiculous. And yet still, God doesn't give up on us. Not even when we do the same stupid things over and over again. Once again, Abraham is on the move. He lives near Sodom and Gomorrah for a while, and then he moves to the kingdom of Gerar. And once again, he gets worried about being killed for his wife. But this time, what does he do? Does he A, pass his wife off as his sister again? B, have Sarah wear a big ugly wig? At C, remember what happened the last time and tell the truth this time? Well, the answer is A. He makes the same mistake. He repeats the same old lie. And once again, he gets everybody in trouble. Chapter 20. For a while, he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She's my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said, "You're as good as dead because of the woman you've taken. She's a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't he say to me that she's my sister, and didn't she say he's my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and a clean heart." Then God said to him in a dream, Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That's why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live." Why do we keep making the same mistakes over and over again? I mean, it's one thing to fail the first time, but why do we fail when we already know the answer? Abraham and Sarah should have known that the truth would set them free, that God would take care of them no matter how scared they were. But once again, they fail. They get a big old F, and F doesn't stand for faith when it comes to Abraham and Sarah. Well, finally, Sarah does have that son, and they name him Isaac, which means laughter. A reminder that they had laughed at God when he'd made that promise, and now the joke was on them. God has kept his word. And you'd think that someone so blessed by God, someone with so many reminders of God's mercy, would be especially merciful and gracious to others. So, how does Sarah treat the maid and her son now that Sarah has a child of her own? Does she A, invite them to the baby shower? Does she B, ask for advice on how to raise a son? Or C, ask Abraham to kick them out of the family? Well, the answer is C. Chapter 21. The child grew and was weaned, and on that day Isaac was weaned. Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking. And she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." And though it broke his heart because Ishmael was his son too, Abraham left Hagar and the boy in the desert of Beersheba. Abraham and Sarah's story started out with such promise, such faith. How could they struggle so much? How could they fail so many tests? How could Abraham and Sarah be our father and mother? Well, I think it's obvious. They are us, or we are them. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree here. In spite of our faith in God, so often we crumble under the struggles of life and fail when we're put to the test. We are fearful. We are liars. We are impatient. We take matters into our own hands and fail to trust God's promises. We doubt God and we lie about our own faithfulness, and we make the same mistakes over and over again. And we who should be most understanding and willing to be a blessing to others are often resentful and jealous and even downright cruel. Lord, have mercy. How can God put up with us? We are certainly children of Abraham and Sarah. But though we are often faithless, God is faithful. And God doesn't give up on us. God keeps going back to the drawing board. God keeps instructing us. God keeps reminding us that we can trust in him, that nothing is too hard for the Lord, that the Lord will provide if we walk by faith. And every once in a while, we actually get it. As Abraham and Sarah's story draws towards its end, we find God still teaching Abraham to trust in the Lord. Chapter 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. And God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." So, this test is harder than all the others. To trust God so completely that he'd be willing to sacrifice his son. So what does he do? Does he A, ignore God, B, kill his son, or C, trust in the Lord? Well, this time the answer is C. This time, he trusts in the Lord. Abraham took wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went up together, Isaac spoke and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son." "The wood and the fire are here," said Isaac, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. The angel of the Lord called out from heaven, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Don't lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." And Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And so Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." We too are fearful, lying, impatient, jealous screw-ups. But the Lord will provide. And we can learn to live by faith. We can trust in God. God is patient. And the Lord will provide. Is anything too hard for the Lord? So this week, when you're up against those trials, those struggles, those tests, this week, be the trusting Abraham and Sarah, not the screw-ups. Be one who walks by faith and not by fear. The Lord will provide. And the Lord doesn't give up on us. So even if we fail, the Lord will still be there. But this week, at least try. At least try to be a person of faith and find out what it means to be children of Abraham. Amen.